Hey everyone, Beardo speaking, and you're watching another episode of MINUTIA MINUTE, and I've got 6 comics in my Wednesday haul video for May 2nd, and 5 of them are practically tied for Pick of the Week. It was a phenomenal week for books for me. I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed my comics, with the exception of one. It was a struggle ordering these from sort of least favorite to favorite. Many of them changed spots several times, and I have to warn you guys, you may not agree with which books I thought were better or worse. Honestly, if I were watching my own video, I would probably disagree with myself, but they were all just that good. I had to put them somewhere, and I sort of had to justify why each book is in its position, so bear with me. Some of the books that are usually at the very top of my list are actually towards the middle this week, which says a lot for just how good of a week it was for comics for me. I just had a blast reading, and I'm really excited to show you guys what I got. So, we're going to kick it off with the title that was kind of disappointing, and then we're going to get on to the absolute best that comics has to offer so far this year. Alright, so kicking it off with Superman Action Comics number 9. And as it was last month, this week is another fairly disappointing issue. So do I keep picking up Action Comics, or do I drop it? I am genuinely really torn. I definitely am at a point where I'm going to have to make some cuts. I can't afford to be getting all the books that I'm getting, and Action Comics is probably going to wind up on the chopping block. I barely picked it up this month. I wanted to check it out because of the cover, sort of the Barack Obama Superman kind of thing kind of intrigued me. I'm not big on like political books, especially, I mean, DC Comics is really supposed to be escapism, so if you get too political in DC Comics, it can be annoying, but when you have a cover like this, I mean, you know what you're getting into, and so I'm willing to give it a shot. And I was curious. So how did it all play out? First of all, with a book like this, you're going to always end up with a fair amount of metaphor, political metaphor going on. And in the first couple of issues, they pretty much sum up the arguments between Barack Obama and the people who oppose Barack Obama. And they do it in a very metaphorical but in-your-face kind of a way, and I had no problem with it. I thought it was fantastic. For those of you, I know some of my viewers don't live in the United States. For those of you who do, you're going to recognize some of the dialogue in here very specifically, and it was great. I enjoyed that part of the issue. However, then we go into a metaphor that's more a metaphor about comics, specifically DC Comics, and that's where this book loses me. Because basically, well, let me back up a little bit. So, Superman in the New 52 has been controversial, to say the least. People have had a lot of mixed feelings about this new Superman that we have in the New 52. I personally am extremely on the fence about him. People complain about the suit and the fact that he doesn't have underwear on and blah blah blah. For me, the suit is just a symptom of something much bigger, which is that they're trying to make Superman this sort of hip, cool character that's a little edgier and, something the kids will like kind of thing. But, I mean, you can't tug on Superman's cape. You know what I mean? He is what he is. He's above cool or not cool. And trying to sort of reinvent the wheel, I don't think there's really any way that they can do it. Which isn't to say that we don't need to breathe some new life into Superman once in a while, especially right now, but the direction they took is just not working for me. And so then we get to Action Comics, and basically the premise of this particular issue is the Superman of Earth 23, who is basically Barack Obama, who is also Superman, fights another Superman from a different Earth, and this alternate Superman is basically, he's a Superman that has been wished into being by all of the people of Earth, and he's constitutes everything that people want their Superman to be. And he's this dark, edgy Superman, he's a cyborg and all this weird stuff, but he's also pure evil, and so the Superman of Earth 23 has to fight him. And in the process, basically the metaphor is that, Superman is something above what we think of him as, because Earth 23 really personifies the way Superman should be, and the Superman we think we want isn't really the Superman we want, because he would just be evil and horrible and blah blah blah. The problem with that is the DC New 52 Superman we got is this edgier, darker Superman that they think that we want. And yet this book inadvertently endorses the old style Superman and totally pans the new 52 Superman. At least that's what I kind of took from the book. But since it's a DC comic, and since it's Grant Morrison who's really been at the forefront of kind of reinventing Superman, how could he be arguing that? I feel like he thinks he's arguing for one thing, but he's inadvertently incriminating himself because we all know the way it really should be. I don't know. Either way, this book was really frustrating for me because it really was the nail in the coffin for me, in that Superman is never going to be the Superman that we know and love in the DC New 52, not without some extreme changes. I've been sticking with Action Comics so far because I've really wanted to see Grant Morrison pull a rabbit out of a hat. But with this issue especially, I'm getting more and more the feeling that that's not going to happen because DC really doesn't understand what they're doing wrong with the Superman character. I think they know that people don't like the Superman character right now, but I don't think they know how to solve it because I don't know that they realize to what extent they've broken the Superman character. So, this is a really harsh review of Action Comics number 9. It wasn't an all bad book. It had some good, decent enough art, passable art. And, I mean, the Barack Obama Superman, honestly, that was fun. It was just this whole deeper metaphor that plays into the whole New 52 Superman. Really bothered me because it just struck me that the creators who are steering the ship that is the Superman juggernaut really don't know which way the wind is coming from. So anyway, let me know if you read Action Comics number 9. Let me know what you thought of that metaphor and if you took it maybe in a different way. Maybe it's Grant Morrison sort of protesting the new Superman. I mean, that could certainly be, but that just doesn't seem like something that I could imagine DC letting him do. So what do you think? Weigh in. I gotta have a second opinion here on Action Comics, but for me it was really a disappointment just because it twisted a knife and reopened an old wound for me. Alright, enough with the sadness. Let's get on with some pure comic book gold. The worst of the best of the books that I picked up this week was The Spider issue 1 from Dynamite Comics. Now, I didn't pick up The Shadow a couple of weeks ago, but I really want to go back and pick it up. The Spider character is basically a ripoff of the Shadow, and he was much less successful because he was basically just a ripoff. And finally, years and years and years later, Dynamite has reinvigorated him along with the Shadow, I've heard. And I gotta say, the Spider issue 1 is everything that you want out of an issue 1. It does a fantastic job of setting up the character. It establishes the setting of the book. It establishes sort of a love triangle that you can see is going to play out. It established the Spider's rivals as well as the first villain that the Spider is going to face. It does everything that you need it to do in 22 pages. And this book did no wrong for me. I mean, this really was spot on. If you are a fan of, I guess, capes with ties, I like to think of them as, so the Spider, the Shadow, the Question, the Spirit, any of those kind of heroes, I think you will really, really enjoy the Spider 1. If you're into sort of film noir type books, things like that, you'll really enjoy the Spider number 1. I really liked the artwork. I thought the story was well told, and I'm really excited to see how the little seeds they planted in issue 1 are going to play out, not only throughout this first story arc, but throughout the series as a whole as it continues to develop. Fantastic job, and kudos to Dynamite and the author and the illustrator, sorry I don't know their names, for the job that they did on the Spider number 1, because this really was a fantastic first issue. One of the best issue number 1s I've read recently, and with all the new 52 books and all the Image books coming out, that's really saying a lot, because this really has it all in it. So go pick this up. I definitely recommend it. And I should probably quick show you off. I did get the wide view cover. This is not like a retailer incentive cover. It's just one of the 4 or 5 different covers that were available from Dynamite. But I thought it was kind of the coolest. This actually beat out a Francisco Francavelli cover, so I really liked this cover. Pretty cool. All right. And if any of you guys picked up The Shadow, I know it's written by Garth Ennis, I believe, or Garth Ennis, I should say, and I'm curious to pick it up after The Strength of the Spider #1. So if you picked up The Shadow and you liked it or didn't like it, let me know, because I am probably going to pick it up, provided that you guys liked it too, because I thought that the Spider was fantastic, and if they can make the Spider this cool, The Shadow is going to be a lot of fun. All right, next book was Swamp Thing #9, and this is a book that's usually at the very top of my list, one of the best books of the week. But as I said, there are so many great books right now that the Swamp Thing came in basically 4th out of 6 comics. Why is it not quite as good? Honestly, I mean, it's a phenomenal book. We get to see what happens with Abigail Arcane, and it goes in a direction I don't think people will expect. I thought this issue was going to be a downer, and it actually ended up being pretty triumphant. I don't want to say more than that, because I'm afraid I would spoil it. I will say that after kind of a pretty big triumph towards the end, the first 19 pages is ass-kicking. And then at the end you get this twist, and it's one of those moments where it's like the bad guys just got their butts kicked, and then the bad guys kind of come back and they're like, haha, everything is played as is playing out as we have always planned. And it's like, I don't know, I think you just got your butts kicked and you don't want to admit it. It came off kind of cheesy to me, and so that's why this one rated below some of the other books that I picked up, just because the ending didn't quite ring true. However, it did lead into a cliffhanger that is very intriguing, and I'm really excited for issue 10. As always with Swamp Thing, a fantastic book. This issue does switch off between Yannick Paquette and Marco Rudy on the artwork, but these guys really work in tandem very well. You can't tell where Paquette ends and Rudy begins. And I don't mean that I mean, it's not impossible to tell for sure, but it's something you don't notice as you're just going through and reading the comics. So, fantastic editorial work, fantastic illustration, and as always, very good writing from Scott Snyder, with the exception of the slightly cheesy moment. It was kind of, it reminded me of like episode 2 or episode 1, or, you know, any of the Star Wars prequels where it's like, the good guys win at the end of the movie, and then all of a sudden Darth Sidious comes out and he's like, aha, I am rather evil, and this is all what I had always planned. Anyway, moving on. Not far away from Swamp Thing is always Animal Man. Animal Man beat out Swamp Thing this month for the first time in quite a while. So in my opinion, issues 6 and 7, Animal Man was really coasting. Issue 8 was starting to build up to something, and we got to the end of the issue, and Animal Man was taken by the rot, and he turned into sort of the undead version of Animal Man, or however you want to think of it. And the way I saw it was, I mean, the book had lost so much steam. I was struggling getting on board with this new turn of events. Even though it was a good cliffhanger, I was a little skeptical. And because I just kind of saw it as kind of a one-off, where it's like, okay, so next issue, he's going to go attack his daughter, and his daughter's going to turn him good again, and that'll be it, and we'll be on to the next thing that's going to stop us from getting to the crossover between Animal Man and Swamp Thing. However, not what happens. Instead, they took it on a much more interesting route. Animal Man being transformed into a minion of the rot, we'll say, is not a one-off story. It's going to be a long, complicated road getting back, and I'm really excited for the ride. So, really great issue. And another reason that this issue, I think, really stepped it up is finally we have a regular artist. It's now Steve Pugh on Animal Man. It's really sad seeing Travel Foreman go. He really, I mean, if you go back and watch my awards videos for the New 52 issue #1s, I'm sure that I gave Travel Foreman my Best Artist award, because his art was just absolutely phenomenal on this book, and he is really sadly missed. That said, Steve Pugh is a worthy successor. It's great to see a nice, clear, unmuddied vision of what the art should look like without any interjection from Travel Foreman or any other third artist that they might have on this book. It's Steve Pugh from start to finish, and I'm loving it. So I wish Travel Foreman well on his journeys into whatever book he's doing after this. I know he's doing something. I just don't remember what it was. And it's sad to see you go, but it's nice to see you leave. I hate to say that, but I guess I don't know how else to put it. Anyway, long story short, I do recommend picking up Animal Man. Minor spoiler, this book has gotten me to decide that I will be picking up the Jeff Lemire Justice League Dark run, because that starts, I believe, this month, and there's an interesting tease in this book that made me very curious to see what Jeff Lemire has in store for our friends at Justice League Dark. So, last month when I was reading Justice League Dark, I said I was kind of on the fence as to whether I'd continue it. Animal Man convinced me. Way to go, Jeff Lemire. You got me buying your other book. All right. Penultimate book that I got this week was Here Comes Daredevil, The Man Without Fear, issue number 12. And this is the second best book that I read this week, and this book was basically a filler issue. We've got 2 issues of Daredevil this month. I'm guessing that number 13 is really going to play into the Omega Drive stuff again. And this issue kind of plays into it towards the end, but basically most of this issue consists of 2 things. It's a date that Matt Murdock and his new girlfriend are on, from earlier, I can't think of her name, and also it's a flashback story to Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson when they were in school. And I loved both of these stories, and even though this was a filler issue, it was a phenomenal read nonetheless. I mean, it really shows how much Mark Waid has just got this character nailed and how perfect his writing is. I mean, Mark Waid has never been this good. Like, I enjoy Mark Waid, but I'm never like, ooh, Mark Waid's on this, I've got to pick it up. Daredevil is the first time where I've really truly seen the genius that is Mark Waid, because it's just phenomenal. So the backstory is basically, it gives us a good look at what Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson were like in college, and you kind of get a sense of how they came to work together and how their sort of friendship dynamic works. Really, really effective. I mean, we know how these guys get along. We know these characters so well, but at the same time, this issue imbued them with so much heart. You know, you really care about these characters, and for newcomers coming into Daredevil fresh and sort of getting this backstory for the first time, I think are in for a real treat, because it was a treat for me. And I mean, I know these characters already, so I can't imagine what it's like for people who are, you know, sort of new to these characters. And the other thing about this issue, as I said, was sort of the date between Matt Murdock and his sort of potential girlfriend, I should say. And I gotta say, like, it's all about the dynamic, you know, between Matt Murdock, his girlfriend, and Daredevil. And she thinks that he's Daredevil, and it's all about, you know, them taunting each other with this little tidbit of fact or fiction. And the way that she teases him about it is hilarious. There's a part where her top comes off, similar to what you see on this cover here. Cool cover, by the way. And I laughed out loud. It was just hysterical, and it reminds me of the relationship that Clark Kent and Lois Lane should have, but don't. And I wish they had when they relaunched the books with the New 52. Just sort of that sort of conniption-y, you know, kersnickety kind of stuff that they have going, but, you know, the bickeringness of them, you know, very much classic, like, Margot Kidder and Christopher Reeve, Superman and Lois Lane. You got a lot of that in this book, only between Matt Murdock and his girlfriend, and I'm sorry I can't remember her name, but anyway. Fantastic book. Love the cover as usual. Love the interior art as usual. Although this was a filler artist, but he did a just fine job. I'm looking forward to, I'm assuming Rivera will be back for issue 13. And great writing by Mark Waid. Penultimate best book of the week, and it was a filler issue. What does that say? Alright, finally, my pick of the week. Now, I should preface this with, OMAC was canceled. Yes, I will never stop talking about this. And so I had a space to fill. And I did pick up the spider, but that is not my DC filler. I wanted to give one of DC's second wave books a try to replace OMAC. 4 of the 6 books came out today. One was Earth 2. There was Dial H for Hero, which originally I was planning on getting, but I didn't end up getting that one. There was World's Finest, and there was GI Combat. There's still Batman Incorporated coming, which I know I'm not going to get. And then one other book, the title of which eludes me. But, man, I can see the cover, but I can't think of the name of the book. Either way, I knew it was going to be either World's Finest, Dial H for Hero, or Earth 2. And I leafed through those 3 books this morning when I was at the comic book shop, and the only one that really grabbed me ended up being the one I bought, and ended up being my pick of the week this week, and that was Earth 2. I don't know where to begin. I'm probably going to spoil this a little bit. I'm not really super familiar with Multiple Earth lore, and like I haven't read like JSA. I've never really read JSA. I mean, so I'm kind of coming into this fresh. So some of this may be familiar to you guys. So if I'm saying stuff you know, I apologize, and if I'm spoiling stuff that I think you'd know, but is actually new stuff, I am sorry. If you want to just be on the safe side, you might want to just stop the video and watch it after you've read Earth 2. So, Earth 2, as you can see on the cover, we've got parademons going on here in the background, and this is basically, the first half of this issue is the Earth 2 version of what happened in the first 6 issues of Justice League by Jeff Johns. And things go substantially different. There is a reason that this is Earth 2. And this is the first and last time you will see these 3 heroes on the cover of Earth 2, because things do not go the way one would expect. And it's handled absolutely beautifully. A great way to set up an alternate universe by really utilizing the story that you've just told in Justice League. Really, really great stuff. The second half of this book is starting to set up the heroes that we will be following in Earth 2, specifically Alan Scott and Jay Garrick, who pops up basically at the end of this issue, and the way they set him up at the end of this book really left me wanting to read more. You'll know what I mean when you get to it. The way they tied in Wonder Woman to Jay Garrick and how their paths kind of cross is incredibly... It's a great morsel. I'm just so excited to check out Earth 2 issue 2. This book was definitely worth a pickup. I don't know if any of the other second wave books were, so let me know if they were, but I loved Earth 2, and this is definitely going to be something I'm going to continue to pick up. The artwork inside by Nicola Scott and Trevor Scott was absolutely phenomenal. Overall, it was just a really, really fun, heartfelt read. Had some sad moments. Makes you laugh, makes you cry, yada yada. Great book. One thing I will say is it's kind of interesting, like, I mean, the whole premise of Multiple Earths in the DCU is you had the Golden Age heroes that everybody knew and loved in the 1930s and 40s, mostly 40s, and you had sort of the next era of superheroes with, you know, Barry Allen, the Flash, moving forward. And so it became a, what if the old superheroes that you used to love met today's superheroes? And it just, I think it'd be really interesting if down the road they did an Earth 3 or an Earth 4 or an Earth 52, whatever, in which we had the meeting of the new 52 superheroes and the pre-reboot superheroes. You know, Superman with underwear on the outside of his shirt, that kind of thing. I mean, that really, in my opinion, if you wanted to revamp like Earth 2, I mean, that's really where it's headed, because that really stays the most true to the, you know, the core concept of why DC Comics has multiple Earths in the first place. So long story short, I think that'd be kind of interesting. That said, I love this book, but I'd be interested in seeing that other book. Who was it? Ghost Critic, on his question of the week said, asked about what second wave book would you like to see that's not coming out. I would say I'd like to see Earth 52, in which the 52nd Earth is basically an Earth in which Flashpoint never happened, and our heroes go to meet the people of the pre-Flashpoint world and play off each other and see how the characters have changed, see how some of them have stayed the same, and really kind of build off that. I think that'd be a fantastic read. Anyway, so those are the books I picked up. We've got Earth 2, DC Comics, Second Wave, great stuff. We've got Daredevil, The Man Without Fear, issue number 12. We've got Animal Man number 9, great read. Swamp Thing number 9, a little tiny trip at the end of the issue, but nevertheless a fantastic one. Look forward to the next one of those. The Spider number 1. I really wanted this to be higher on the list. I feel bad that it's at the bottom because I really love this book. So go check it out. Even though it's towards the bottom of my list, remember it's just because there was so much good stuff that came out this week. And then finally, Action Comics number 9. Ugh.